20,000 years ago, a human could fall asleep in winter and never wake up. Not from predators, not from starvation, from the cold itself. In minutes, exposed flesh froze. Fingers stopped working. Breathing became painful. The body began shutting down. And yet, humans did something impossible. They survived. They crossed frozen continents, lived through temperatures below -30°C, endured winters that lasted most of the year. Saber-toothed cats were deadly. Cave bears were unstoppable. Mammoths could crush a person instantly. But none of them were the true ruler of this world. The cold was. Entire continents lay buried beneath ice miles thick. Blizzards erased the land. Wind stripped heat from the body faster than it could be replaced. There were no buildings, no modern clothing, no technology. And yet, humans survived here for thousands of years. Not by luck, but by mastering the cold itself. Archaeological evidence shows they did not survive by accident, they survived through innovation. In Siberia and across Eurasia, archaeologists have discovered bone needles dating back more than 40,000 years. These tools are small and precise, carefully shaped with an eye designed to hold thread made from animal sinew. This allowed humans to sew fitted clothing from animal hides. Unlike loose skins draped over the body, fitted clothing traps a thin layer of air between the skin and the outer environment. That trapped air slows the escape of heat. It creates insulation. Even today, modern winter clothing relies on the same principle. With bone needles and sinew thread, humans transformed animal hides into protective systems. Fur faced outward to block wind. Softer layers faced inward to preserve warmth. Seams were stitched tightly to prevent heat from escaping. This simple technology allowed humans to carry warmth with them into environments that would otherwise kill them. But clothing alone was not enough. Wind accelerates heat loss dramatically. Even a well-insulated body can freeze quickly if exposed to constant wind. On the open mammoth steppe, there were few trees and almost no natural shelter. The cold moved freely across the land, stripping heat away from anything exposed. To survive, humans began building structures from the only large materials available to them. In Ukraine and across Eastern Europe, archaeologists have uncovered circular dwellings constructed entirely from mammoth bones, some dating back 15 to 20,000 years. These were not random piles of remains, they were carefully engineered shelters, built with planning and intention. Massive mammoth skulls were placed at the base, forming stable foundations. Long curved tusks were driven into the frozen ground or leaned inward, creating strong structural arches. Heavy ribs and limb bones were stacked and interlocked, forming rigid walls capable of resisting powerful winds. Some of these structures measured several meters across, large enough to house entire families. Excavations reveal repeated patterns in their construction, showing that these techniques were learned, shared, and passed down through generations. Animal hides were stretched tightly over the bone frames and secured using sinew. Additional bones were placed on top to hold the hides in position, preventing wind from lifting them away. This outer barrier sealed the interior from the freezing air outside. Inside these shelters, fires burned at the center. Archaeologists have discovered preserved hearths, ash deposits, and charcoal, evidence of repeated and sustained human occupation. Within these bone walls, the difference was life and death. The wind was blocked. Heat could accumulate. The human body no longer lost warmth as quickly to the surrounding air. Inside these shelters, humans could survive nights that would otherwise be fatal. Fire itself was essential to survival. It provided warmth. It allowed food to be cooked. It allowed humans to endure long winter nights that would otherwise be impossible. Evidence of controlled fire appears at human sites across Ice Age Eurasia. But in frozen environments, wood was often scarce. Trees were limited. Fuel was not always easy to find. And humans adapted. Archaeological sites show burned animal bones used as fuel. Bone burns slowly and produces steady, reliable heat. What might otherwise be discarded became a critical survival resource. Cold also created another problem. The human body requires energy to produce heat. Without sufficient energy, heat production stops. And when heat production stops, survival becomes impossible. Ice Age humans did not hunt animals for meat alone. They hunted for fat. Fat contains more than twice the energy of protein. It provides the calories needed to fuel the body's heat production systems. Archaeological evidence shows humans breaking open bones to extract marrow from within. This marrow was rich in fat and calories. It provided essential energy during the harshest conditions. Without fat, survival in extreme cold would not have been possible. Humans also adapted through movement. They followed migrating animals across vast distances. They moved toward regions with available fuel and shelter. They avoided areas where conditions became too severe. Archaeological evidence from Siberia shows humans living above the Arctic Circle as early as 27,000 years ago. This was one of the harshest environments on Earth. And they survived. Not because they were physically stronger, but because they adapted. The greatest threat to Ice Age humans was never predators. It was never mammoths. It was never bears. It was the cold. Cold does not chase. Cold does not need to hunt. Cold waits. It removes heat slowly, steadily, until the body can no longer function. And through tools, shelter, fire, and intelligence, humans overcame it. The evidence still exists today. Bone needles shaped by human hands. Mammoth bone shelters rising from frozen ground. Ancient hearths where fires once burned against the darkness. Proof of survival against impossible odds. Because without these adaptations, our species would not exist today.